The CRM, we all have a love-hate relationship with the darn thing. But what can we do to make sure our CRM is set up right, that we have the right CRM in place, and that also we make it easy for our team to use? We're going to give you 3 ideas today. You're going to love it, and you're going to apply them. And you're going to see great results from it. Check it out. Hey, everyone. Welcome to another great episode of the Sales Evangelist Podcast. I'm your host, Donald C. Kelly, the Sales Evangelist, and I'm so excited for another great episode. I'm so excited to be here with you today. And on this episode, we have a fantastic guest. His name is Moustafa Moursy, and he's a sales guy, a strategist, and a CRM lover. So he put all this together, and it makes it very easy and effective to have a great conversation with someone. Spent over 10 years in sales, worked in different variety of industries, but also work right now with a lot of clients who are looking to improve their CRM, making sure it's something that the team actually use and put the right system and processes in place. So as we dive into the episode, he breaks down 3 key points. We're going to focus mainly around the right CRM, making sure we have the right processes in place. There are some cool things we can do with our CRMs. And then also tying back into how do we ensure that it's something our team's going to use. If this is your first time listening to our show, know that it's designed to help you to build pipeline and to close deals. And the strategies today will definitely do that. And also, we'd love for you to check out TSC Sales Mastermind. This mastermind is designed to be able to help sellers like yourself come together with me. We have a small cohort. You get a chance to learn from other sellers. We do role play. We practice. We take the things we learn and implement them. As we dive in, see how you can take these things and apply them as well. And if you're interested in our mastermind, go to thesalesevangelist.com/mastermind. Let's go check out the episode. Moustafa, welcome to the show.
Hey, thanks for having me, Donald.
And I'm really looking forward to this. I think you and I have gone back and forth, and we had discussion and conversation around this. And the topic here is something that many of us, all of us, every salesperson know a thing or two about. We know about the CRM, and we have a love-hate relationship with the darn thing. However, CRMs can be used effectively. We know we must use it in our organization, but there's several gaps that I find that people fall short on when it comes to the CRM. So hopefully you can give me some insights on this and help fill the gap. But tell us a little bit more about what you do, man.
Yeah, absolutely. So I have extensive, first of all, this is a sales show. I have extensive sales experience. I worked in a very complex industry, construction sales, for about 10 years, did tens of millions of dollars of deals in very complex space. And I would say right now, I mean, we obviously run my company, Push Analytics, and I would tell you we're a digital company, but that we do things a little bit differently. So in a sense, we're almost like business engineers, right? Like we're trying to find out with all our services, right? Whether it's CRM build out, ads, process consulting, just generally advising people. We're trying to figure out like what needs to work better with the business and how do we get there. So it's about really diving into the business and using all these services as tools to like improve the business. So that's kind of the approach we take, which is a little bit different. It was actually one of the reasons HubSpot came after us and they're like, we really want you guys to be partners because we don't have too many partners that like kind of look at things this way and do things in this like end-to-end way.
Love it. Love this. All right, so here's what I'd like to do then. I'd like to dive into talking about it. 3 main portion of this. So from the CRM standpoint, the problem is most of us have a CRM, and leaders, I feel oftentimes, and founders, that if they have a CRM, the CRM is going to be the main source. That's where money's coming from. Like, because I have the CRM, money should be coming in. Do you see that's the case? I have a CRM, I have salespeople. Where the money at, man?
Yeah. This is a kind of a common mistake. A lot of people will do this. Hey, we bought the CRM. Why are our sales not like, double-digit higher right now? I mean, and that's just not how it works, right? The CRMs may want you to believe that or may lead you to believe that. They don't say that, but people kind of think that for the pitch. But ultimately, we got to realize the CRM is just a tool. And just like you wouldn't you bought like a fancy set of tools from Home Depot, you don't, put them in your garage and the next day you're like, why is there no shed? I mean, you shouldn't be doing the same thing with the CRM, right? It's a tool is only as good as like how you utilize it and how you set it up, right? And those are kind of the 2 important things that go around the tools.
So let's go back into the right tool. Is there a right CRM for organization? Because I find people use anything from, and full disclosure, this podcast is part of the HubSpot podcast network, but we have produced content with other brands as well. Sure. And I have clients who use a wide range of CRMs. But from your perspective as an expert when it comes to CRM, like how do you determine which CRM is going to be the right fit for you?
No,
the
absolutely. I
organization.
mean, and you always got to look at like the individual business and like kind of what features and stuff you need. I mean, even if you, yeah, I mean, like we like HubSpot, for example, but like you kind
Sure.
of mentioned, we also work with like a wide variety of different things, and there are different pros and cons, right, to the tools. I mean, like right, pricing features,
Hmm.
like the UI, kind of like whether it works for you or not, customization, like depending on what you need to do. But you got to really assess like you always have to have the right tool, even within HubSpot itself. I mean, we'll often have people who maybe they already bought HubSpot, but the configuration of hubs they have doesn't actually match what they need. So they have the wrong part of HubSpot, the wrong hubs. Maybe they have like, Sales Hub, but they really need Marketing Hub, but they don't have Marketing Hub, right? So they almost have like the wrong part of HubSpot. So, the first thing is to make sure you have the right tool. So I would say you got to do an assessment of like, kind of what do we need, what are some of the pros and cons of each tool, and go from there. We help people with that, all the time, right? But it going to be dependent on the business needs, and HubSpot is great for a lot of companies.
Yeah.
Sometimes you might need something and it just HubSpot doesn't do it or isn't the right fit for your business. So, it's fine too.
Yeah. So getting the right CRM in place. If I'm a founder, you're telling me then look at the basically way my business is structured. I mean, are there like there core things?
There's core features, right? So
Yeah.
I mean, I would say like generally, if you want specifics, HubSpot can work for a good chunk of businesses, right? Now,
Sure.
sometimes people want something like, I don't know, I'm in the insurance industry or something, and like,
Mm-hmm.
there's like specific tools that are like insurance related, and there might be like some niche tools or niche players that I might be able to like go with that, kind of work better with my workflow, right? Maybe HubSpot doesn't really work for my workflow at that point.
Yeah.
Right. So stuff like that. I mean, one big comparison that we see, I know we're going a little bit of a tangent here, but since we're here,
Sure. Let's
is
go.
Salesforce, right? Salesforce comes up a lot.
Yeah.
So what I like to say about Salesforce, and yeah, I've used Salesforce extensively over the years, and all their different types of sides of the business, like classic Lightning, their analytics tools, their CPQ configurator. Like I used it personally and deployed it, and
Yeah.
Salesforce is very, 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 very customizable. This comparison comes up with HubSpot a lot. And what I like to say is, you go to Salesforce, you're like, listen, I want to go to the moon. And they're like, you know what? We can sell you a rocket ship. And they sell you a rocket ship, and you get to the moon, eventually. And you're like, okay, cool. Then you go to Salesforce, you're like, I want to go to work. And they're like, okay, we can sell you a rocket ship. And you're like, but like, I just need to go to work. I work like the next town over. I mean, do you have a
Yeah.
car? And you know what? If you don't have a car, I can even make a bike work. And then, they're like, I mean, don't worry, you can customize the rocket ship into a car or a bike. And they're not wrong. They're not lying to you.
Yeah.
It is true. You can, but like, who wants to do that, right? You're gonna spend like millions for the rocket and then millions to customize it when you could have bought a car for 50,000. So,
Bro,
that's kind
so
of
just to pause
Salesforce.
there. Your description of that is so accurate.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. We deal with this a lot. I've had to explain this a lot.
Oh my goodness.
But yeah. So Salesforce will sell you a rocket ship, and when you need a rocket ship,
Yeah.
Salesforce may be the only player in town that can actually sell rocket ships. But the thing is, a lot of people don't need rocket ships. So oftentimes, something like a HubSpot or some alternative tool will work. Just fine, right? And it'll be a
Yeah.
lot easier to kind of get up and going. So that's the things I look at. And the other obviously main consideration is pricing. Sometimes you want to be within a certain budget or whatever, and then other times you want like very specific features, and it may not work. It may not work to have. Even you might want to combine tools, right? So for example, maybe you want to use HubSpot, but you
Hmm.
have, for whatever reason, a massive email list that you need to be emailing, like let's say 1 million people or something, right?
Yeah.
And that's gonna be very, very costly to do in HubSpot. Like, right, the just cost per marketing contact is like really high. So you may opt to, maybe have HubSpot do like kind of some of the automation, like buy like just a basic version of marketing contacts, only to do like form replies and stuff like that. Use HubSpot
Yeah.
for sales, and then integrate another tool, whether it's Mailchimp or Klaviyo or whatever, right? So really understanding the business needs and the resources available then allows you to kind of overlay that on like what is available that we can kind of puzzle together to make this work, right? But usually people kind of already come with like, well, we already have this CRM that we're not using, like HubSpot or whatever, or it's like, they kind of have like 1 or 2 players that they want to consider anyways, and then it just, usually it's a quick assessment essentially.
So here's the other part to that too. So I mean, we make sure we have the right system in place. This is the next step. That's set up. So my sales team, because we're going to get to sellers in a little bit here, what they can do. But when it comes towards this, from a leadership standpoint, there's things that I should probably be doing to make sure my CRM is set up to best function for my sales team. Can you help me walk through that for me? Like I get Salesforce out of the box, I get HubSpot out of the box. How do I know the best way to set it up to help my sellers to be the most productive?
Yeah, absolutely. So that's really good. Yeah. So the first thing we said is like pick the right tool for like what you
Sure.
need. But the second big part of it, right? It doesn't end with procuring the tool. Then you actually have to build out the processes for how you how you want to run and like kind of work the tool because you got to set it up, right?
Yeah.
So what we'll do, the approach we kind of take is we don't even look at the tool first. So actually, and this, you could even do this before you acquire the tool even. So we could be like, okay, what are we trying to accomplish? Well, we're trying to make sure that, sales is efficient and they're closing more sales, for example, right? So it's like, okay, cool. So now let's talk through the sales process and whatever it is. I always tell people like, look, tell me what your sales process is now. Even if your sales process is we write stuff on a napkin and hand it to the customer, that's fine because I just want to know where you're at right now. There's no like right answer or wrong answer, but let's just know where you're at.
Only
right
clean napkins though, man.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
The bounty stuff, right?
Well, I worked in construction. I was like a construction reference. Like we're like, oh, we got a napkin spec, because some people would actually do that.
Can we submit to the city to get the permit?
Yeah, I don't know. They sketch something like by hand, and it's like, here you go, and I want a quote, and it's like, okay, what is this? So, but yeah, it's an actual thing. So that could be some people's business, and that's fine, right? But it's like we need to understand where we are and where we want to go, and then essentially, lay out the bridges, right? Lay out the bridges that are going to get us there, and then start building them. So that's kind of the overall framework. There's a lot of flow charting that goes into that, and a lot of like, okay, we need an automation here. We need to track this. We need to track this. And as you're doing that, I mean, there's features that you're using. So we may know the features in advance and just have the tool already, or we may kind of, depending on the business, right, or situation, maybe it's like it's completely like evergreen, and it's like, what, we could kind of plan this out a little bit first, and then kind of decide the tools or the features we need in HubSpot or whatever, and make sure we procure the right tools.
We had a client we were talking to. No, it wasn't a client. It was somebody that I had a conversation with, and this person worked for a said CRM company, shall not be named.
Sure.
And one of the things that they did was and I thought this idea was brilliant, where they got different people together, like the end users, and they came together and like a whiteboard or like a big brown piece of paper with sticky note, and they had that up for like a week, and everybody just put different things around that buyer's journey, like what they're seeing and what, how can we improve or whatnot. So then once they go back to what you're saying, like this design process, they were able to get everybody's input on the design as far as what we feel could work. So what the salespeople saw versus what some of the marketing team saw versus some of what RevOps is thinking. Then everybody put their sticky notes and their message around what what part of the process they think we need to have automated or whatnot. And it was great because then when the consultant came in or somebody like you, then it just made it very easy for us to say, all right, this is what you're trying to do. Here's some professional opinions on that, and let's go about making that process. Am I making sense on that?
No, absolutely, and that's actually a big, and that's kind of more detail on what I was saying, which is we need to understand where are we today, and and a good process, and it almost goes the order of things, just its tool, and then having the right process, and then the right implementation of the tool to match up with the process, and then the right utilization by people. So a good process, which is the point we're at now, will factor in both sides of the equation. In other words, it's going to factor in the buyer's journey. It's going to be smooth to the buyer's journey. It has to make sense to how people are doing business, but it also needs to factor in what happens on the back end too. So almost like the seller's journey, if you want to say that. So a good process will marry both. And people don't really often think of, I'm just calling it the seller's journey, but people don't often think of the seller's journey. They're just thinking of the buyer's journey, right? Customer journey, like people think of that very often. But like, are you thinking of what it takes for sales to actually get that quote to the buyer, right? Well, they have to go back and, they have to go to engineering, and they have to go to this, and they have to do this, and then blah, blah, blah. And they have to do all these things. And maybe it's really complicated, and maybe it's like there's a lot of things falling between the cracks, and maybe that needs to be cleaned up, But at the same time, if something is necessary for the buyer's journey, you can't just, simplify it out of existence if it's something like, they need or they expect or whatever, right? It's like, I don't know, like maybe you're like a mortgage company or something. And
Yeah.
you're like, man, these like documentations or whatever that we have to give the customer, they're annoying. We're gonna just stop doing it. Well, but then they can't do anything, right? Like they can't buy the house, so like you can't just stop doing it, like because it's part of the buyer's journey, even though maybe it's not the best thing on the seller's journey, right? We're tired of giving pre-approval letters. Yeah, we're gonna just stop doing it. So you can't do that. So that's why you have to for
Stop
both.
making money.
Yeah. That's why you have to account for both. And
Yeah.
that's I think where people don't really realize that you really got to marry both together to make it work seamlessly.
So hear me out on this and continue with this conversation here. Like, think about it from the perspective of like and the salesperson, and we'll go into that here in a sec. But as a seller, what are the main reasons? Because you talk about a seller's journey, and I know this is going to be different based on companies, but let's just say a B2B company with a mid-sized level company. They have probably 10 salespeople. But let's think about that. Like, what are the headaches that cause people, the sellers, not to take advantage of the CRM or use it effectively? I think there was a stat from Salesforce talk about 60% still right now, 30% of the seller's time is actually selling. And a portion of that, I forgot which number it is, but it's pretty significant, is doing admin work. And one of the admin work they lump into that is a CRM. What are the gripes that you get that make salespeople just like, have a distaste for the CRM? And,
one big one.
What are some ways to fix that?
Yeah, and I will say I worked in sales myself for almost 10 years. B2B.
Come on,
enterprise.
preach.
Yeah, B2B enterprise sales. I did very complex type of sale, which is construction, and there's so many parties and things involved. And did tens of millions of dollars of deals. And one of the really big things that I'm sure a lot of salespeople here will agree with is when you get somebody who doesn't understand the actual sales process and doesn't necessarily understand that buyer's journey in charge, or maybe not necessarily in charge, but exclusively working on the process, then it ends up not making sense and nobody even wants to do it, and then it just becomes a bunch of admin work. So sometimes this happens where it's like, okay, company hired so and so from, I don't know, Chase Bank or something, and he has financial experience, and we're selling freaking cement. And it's like, and he's doing all the, not to say that he can't do it, but he's doing all the process for it. But he's not even taking anybody's input. But it's like, but how do you even know? Like, you even know what steps go into this? Like, do you even know what the buyers expect? Sure, it's always good to bring a different perspective, but at the same time, it's like you have to account for that like gravity on the ground, which is like there is a buyer's journey and there is a way people buy things, and it doesn't matter how you want to do it. If you're gonna do something completely like, just disregarding the buyer's journey, it's not usually going to work too well, right? So especially if there was nothing wrong with the buyer's journey to begin with. So that's a big one. That's a really big one. You kind of see that a lot, especially big organizations. You see that a lot where it's like, just people who are in charge of, kind of the sales process and like what people need to do in the CRM, who haven't sold themselves and also don't know how the people in that company are selling to begin with. So if you are that person, let's say you're listening and you're like, I don't have sales experience, but I need to get this done. That's fine. But then I would say you should kind of lean even more heavily into like kind of that stakeholder discussion that we talked about earlier. Get the salespeople, sales managers, sales whatever on the, in a room or on Zoom or whatever, and kind of like, okay, like, hey, what are the challenges we're facing? What are the key things? What are the key pain points? What do we need to do? What would it be if we had today? It would be a little bit more efficient, and start kind of parsing through that. And seeing like what needs to be fixed and what doesn't. And a lot of times people end up fixing things that aren't broken, and it just really frustrates salespeople a lot. But, it's like, hey, this was fine. I didn't have to fill out 7 forms, to contact, so-and-so to ask a technical question like from our backend team. And I have to do all this. And like, I don't even have time for this because I'm like with the customer, I need to get an answer like, right away, not like route through like, a million CRM screens just to be able to get a ticket assigned, just to be able to eventually maybe get an answer. So stuff like that really frustrates the salespeople and adds a ton of admin work that doesn't really need to be there.
Yeah. And I think that's where the frustration comes in, right? Like, I want to do my job. I want to take care of it. It's already challenging as it is. Like you're saying, like as a sales professional, there's from the mental side, and then obviously the stuff that you have to take care of with the cold calling and so forth. But then to go put on more on top of it, it just makes me loathe the CRM and not want to take advantage of it or to utilize it effectively. what else can I do to make the CRM work for my seller? Any other thoughts, final thoughts on that?
Yeah, I mean, I definitely simplifying, kind of ask yourself if this is something we really need, like at any given step, right, before you kind of implement it. And also, you got to set it up in a way where, like, it's give and take, right? So if you ask like a lot of salespeople, how much documentation do you want to do in the CRM? The answer is pretty much always going to be zero for most people, right? And then if you ask, somebody like in ops or management, whatever, like how much documentation do you want? And they might want like everything in the kitchen sink. So, but the answer is somewhere in between, right? So the salespeople are going to have to maybe document, if they're not using a CRM now, document a little bit more than what they're used to. And then kind of the opposite end, you're going to have to, make your standards a little bit flexible so that they're compatible with the day-to-day lives of the salespeople, right? So kind of both sides really need to work together on that and somewhat meet in the middle, right? Because there are people who, and I've seen the other side of it too. There are people who, no matter how much you simplified it or whatever, that's too much. Dude, you got to fill out like two fields, and like really need it. It's too much. But like, there is a point where it's like there is like a level of things we do really need. But I think one way to get around that is to also, and we always do this. Anytime we're doing like any CRM work, we always have training for directly towards the salespeople, like, or whoever's using it at the end, because it's really important for them to like understand like the context of like, okay, like listen, if you do this, that's it's gonna take work, whatever. But then you end up with this dashboard that's gonna show you like how you're performing, and you can like kind of look at it and be able to follow up. And then you end up with this automation that will follow up with the customer for you once you generate a quote. It'll go in, whatever, right? So then they gotta start saying like, okay, there's something in it for me too, and then they realize that like, okay, I should use this. So that's really important. And a lot of people don't do that. They don't do that like buy-in step.
Love it. I love it, man. This is good. Great stuff here. If leaders are out there listening to this episode, if there's one major piece of advice you give to that leader, and I think you probably gave a bunch of advice to a leader already, what would be that one major piece of thought that you want them to leave with?
Yeah, I mean, I would definitely say make sure you take everything into consideration. I think that's kind of the thing. And, everything may not be what you think it is, right? So everything means like the buyers, the sellers, what your sellers are feeling, what their pain points are, what is currently working, what is not working. Make sure you take everything into consideration before just making decisions, right? On stuff like this, right? What ends up happening, and if you do, and you're like, I know I want it this way, and I don't really care what anybody thinks, and what ends up happening is honestly you end up with like people joke about this like garbage in, garbage out. It's like, okay, we're gonna make this process of like 7 forms they have to fill out to do anything, and then people are just gonna like, okay, fine, I gotta do it, so I'm gonna just type whatever and get to the next screen and call it a day. And then it's not even useful for anybody, and everybody's just doing this exercise in futility. The sales reps are like, I just got to do it because my manager said so. But I don't care, and I'm not going to spend time actually putting the right info. And then the managers are like, oh, we're getting all this info, and then we're doing analysis of things that aren't even
not real,
accurate. They're not real, but it's just, and nobody's talking to anybody about it because it's like now it's this environment of like, well, I can't tell them because they're going to be like, this is the way, and like we don't care, and then so you end up with these like situations that just aren't good. People think that it's like, oh, okay, finally they listened, but that's not really what happens.
No. The truth is the truth there, man. This is good. If folks are trying to get in touch with you, man, they want to get and connect with you, you drop some good value here today with insights. What's the best way for them to go about doing so?
Yeah, absolutely. Just keep it simple. Just email. If you send an email to hello@pushanalytics.com, very easy email, hello@pushanalytics.com, and you put in the title, that you came from the podcast. So you can just drop TSC in there, and the team will route it. And happy to jump on a call and kind of if you want to ask questions or go more specific on a use case for your business. I know a lot of here we said it depends on the business, so we could do that. We could do like a 30-minute consult or 20-minute consult. So again, hello@pushanalytics.com. Put TSC in the title, and we'll go from there.
You see that? He has a system set up for it already. Now, you got to tell us now, what CRM are you using?
Well, we use HubSpot because we're a HubSpot partner. Yeah. We do use HubSpot. But awesome. Absolutely.
No, man, we appreciate your insights on the show today, man. Thanks so much, Moustafa. Appreciate it.
Yeah. Thank you.
Told you Mustafa was going to give us some good insights today. I love the thoughts. I love the ideas. And particularly a couple points that I wrote down was going back to look at the processes. Like, what more can we do to make sure our process is aligned that's going to give the best results for our sales team? But not only the buyer's journey, but the seller journey. How can I make the role easier for my seller? And then as an individual contributor, thinking about it from this perspective, I need to look at ways that I can make the process what can I do to make sure the process improve, and also give feedback back to my team about that. Anyways, amazing stuff. I hope you enjoyed it as much as I did. Take advantage of the offer that he has. It's down in the show notes. And if you'd like to learn more about our mastermind, go to thesalesevangelist.com/mastermind to check it out. Thesalesevangelist.com/mastermind. As always, I want you to thrive. I want you to succeed. I want you to raise your level of thinking. Most importantly, I want you to make some money and do big things. See you on the next one.